Hello everyone, Revan619 here, and I hope you're all doing very well. I have been streaming almost daily for New World, and I have been having a blast. I went from levels 1 to 30 as a greataxe hatchet user, and from levels at 30 plus to endgame, I have been playing as a mage. I've done a little bit of mix up between greataxe ice gauntlet and full-on mage fire staff ice gauntlet. However, for my most recent build, you'll notice that I'm using burnout. And the reason for this is because I finally have the perk Refreshing Pillar of Fire. Until you have this perk, I highly recommend still using Incinerate. But once you have Refreshing Pillar of Fire, this build completely changes the way you play because Flame Pillar becomes your main damaging ability rather than Incinerate, which was obviously your highest damaging ability. So I'm going to explain how this build works, how you use it, show off my perks, and generally what I go with the stats. In the background, I've got a war footage from our recent attack, which unfortunately we did lose. There was a few communication issues there, and we just got out-healed with the enemy healing their top 10 healers all over 2 million, our healers mostly in the 500k range. But in this instance, I managed to put out 1.7 million damage. Unfortunately, one person doing 1.7 million damage is not enough to win it. We had a few others who put out the similar damage, but they were also using a Refreshing Pillar perk, so we're pretty certain that this is quite the go-to for damage and for some AoE stuff with the Ice Storm. So the two weapons I'm using in this war is Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet, which I will bring up the abilities now to show you what's going on. So as you can see, I've changed these a little bit from my level guides, which I did before the launch. I will provide links to this below, so if you're not sure what all these perks are, then you'll be able to see it individually what's going on. But I will run through what you're doing. So you've gone full down into the Fire Pillar ability. The reason we've done this is so we get the mana back on hit. We've taken the ability Singe, which is very important for the interaction with this. We're also using Refreshing Fire Pillar, which is an armor perk. They don't stack, so you only need one on either your weapon or your armor. But essentially, what this means is, for each person you hit, it lowers the cooldown on your Fire Pillar and gives you back mana. However, if you hit multiple people, then it reduces your cooldown multiple times. But also, if you land a critical, you get Singe, which is burn ticks. These burn ticks will tick once for 6 seconds on everything you criticaled, will also provide cooldown reduction and mana. If you're also using Chain, the cooldown reduction and the mana will be increased by Chain when these Singe ticks proc. So if you hit one person with a critical, for the next 6 seconds, you will get cooldown reduction and you will get mana back for twice for every time it ticks. If you, however, do this to multiple people, it will go down, as well as reducing the cooldowns on the initial hits, which means that at some point, you will have infinite uses of Fire Pillar. The reason I've taken Burnout on this build, when normally you take Incinerate, is in the event that you miss your Pillar of Fire, that you can reduce your cooldowns further. I've also taken the ability to reduce my cooldowns on Heavy, so if I miss, then I can obviously get back into it to then be trying to do it. So there's a lot of mitigation for if I accidentally mess up my plays. Now this build is ideal for PvE, dungeons, and for wars, because it keeps your Fire Pillar up almost the entire time you're using it, so you almost have infinite uses of it to maximize your DPS. So you can just be going ham into groups, just constantly spamming Pillar of Fire. As long as you're hitting, you'll always have it on cooldown. If you're hitting the big ball, you'll always automatically get refreshed, even if you don't have the critical procs on Singe. So once you start landing these up and you start moving, you can even dodge cancel the animation to use it quicker, as you'll see me doing a lot here. Right now, I'm not going into full-on Flame Pillar mode, but you'll see in the coming up clip that that's exactly what I'm going to do. Also, Burnout allows you to get through the point to rotate the other side really quickly. So as you can see here, look, I cast Flame Pillar, I can immediately cast it again, I can immediately cast it again, I can immediately cast it again, I can immediately cast it again. Because I also get mana back and I get mana on dodge, I have absolutely no mana issues. So whilst my Ice Storm being my biggest AoE damages in cooldown, I can literally fall back to Flame Pillar and keep up my constant DPS. This was a 30-minute war, and in that 30 minutes, excluding death time and rotation time, my damage was up for 20 minutes solid, which is why I hit 1.7 million damage. If I wasn't rotating and I was always fighting on points, that'd be an extra 10 minutes. So of 2/3 of my potential time doing damage, not including deaths. Yes, I was able to hit 1.7 million damage in this war, and I'm still not in 600 gear score gear. I'm actually just using the 520 faction gear and the jewelry that I've got from the quests at this point. So as you can imagine, my damage has a huge potential to keep on going and growing. Normally, like I said before, I wouldn't recommend Burnout, because Burnout is just a way to pad your numbers. You get a small hit on everyone that can then be healed off, and people were abusing this to try and get up on the leaderboards, and people were doing over 1 million damage consistently, but they weren't killing anyone because they were doing such little damage they didn't have the burst to actually kill anyone. Because essentially, wars are AoE damage versus AoE healing, and unfortunately the life staff wins every time, so you need to get burst damage in. So just because you're hitting 2 million damage on spamming, Burnout, you're probably not going to kill anyone, because that's only 134% weapon damage. However, Flame Pillar with an Onyx, so you can stack your extra 40% damage on someone at full health, with an extra 30% damage on someone at full health, and then an even further increase when you have the 300 int perk. So you will have massive bursts on that first hit. If your allies are using Ice Storms and then you're bursting all down their full HP and then putting in your Ice Storms as well, you should be able to kill and wipe and break the healing. However, because of the nature of wars, they are incredibly laggy, so sometimes it can be very hard to actually get your damage off. So what you can see I'm doing here is I'm not fighting on point because I'm in one of the 3 Vanguard units. Now, my objective in the war here is actually to be hitting their backline and dropping AoEs on the back of their point. So I'm meant to be one of the only people that aren't on point fighting and healing in the melee here. However, a lot of our team are trying to push onto point, but they're not actually pushing around and into it, but that's not the purpose of today's video. I was just going off the tangents there. On my other perks, my fire staff, I have all the abilities that give me burn damage and fortify on left click. So if I left click, I get burns up. Whilst burns are up, or singes, I have 10% fortify, which is really good. I would be using clear mind, which is an extra 10% damage when you haven't taken damage for 3 seconds. However, this seems bugged and you just don't get the damage, so that's why I'm not using that. Now, to complement the fire staff here, the secondary weapon you can use is either the greataxe, which is very good to stop rotations, and it is also good to chase down people. However, in wars, because you want more AoE damage, I've gone with the ice gauntlet. Ice gauntlet gives me 2 also secondary tools, which are very important for this build. Number 1, ice wall. I can completely stop an enemy rotation and stop them getting on point. Heavy attacks I can then use to kill them. However, this is way less effective than gravity. Gravity is a 3-second hard route that can be done from range, so you do need allies still using gravity. I can set up a choke point as people try to push onto point, but I can't hold them there. That's why we need gravity, which is very important. Entombed will allow me to basically have 10 seconds potential of surviving a point. If I'm low in health and in allied healing, I can Entombed, heal up to full, and then I can AoE out. Entombed is also an AoE, along with my Ice Storms. Now, as people know with Punishing Storm, whilst your Ice Storm is up, if you swap weapons, your Storm will cancel. So you need to keep it up whilst it's on there. However, this is why you take crit chance, because as long as you're at full stamina, when you are shooting people in your Ice Storm, you are way more likely to critical. So whilst they're in your Ice Storm and you're left clicking, you will do a lot more damage. If you find individuals to heavy attack, such as healers, you can root them during these heavy attacks so they can't dodge, which means healers are more likely to die and not escape. Your best pairings for this build is an ally using a greataxe. If you have an ally helping you and they are dropping a greataxe, you will have a great time at absolutely demolishing people, because if your allies can cluster up a bunch of people into a gravity and then you drop an ice storm or you just start spamming flame pillar, you will do huge damage, absolutely huge damage. As you can see, I'm fighting in their backlines, doing my little hardest to try and wipe out their healers, but what you can see that I'm really missing here is an ally working with me doing gravities. Now, we were meant to have this in our squad, but we did seem a little bit disorganized, and as I was coming back into points, I unfortunately wasn't meeting up with my squad. What I should have been doing here is, because my objective was to find the backlines, and at points, my group was being called to fight in these backlines, and, well, basically, my group just wasn't there. So what I should have been doing is trying to organise a meeting with my group more. As you can see here, a 300 strength greataxe tries to focus me, ice wall, heavy attacks. This man, even though he's potioning, dead. Not going to survive that. This is why it's such a useful tool, but however, as you can see, it's very single focused. I can infinite root one person, not multiple people. That gravity that you saw on the left there, that he wasted on one person, terrible gravity. If he had put that on a group, I could have then dropped an Ice Storm and hit multiple people. And that's where this build really shines, when you are paired with a good Gravity user and a good Life Staff user. If you have a friend that uses Life Staff and Gravity, you super glue each other by the hip, and you go around in a 2-man unit providing heals to each other, providing CC to each other, and then you just absolutely burst the hell out of them. And because your friend's going to be tanky enough to get in there with the greataxe as well, he will also be doing fantastic damage. And that's all I can really say about the build, because when it comes to stat allocation, you want to try to get to that 300 in as quickly as possible, and then you want to try to get between 100 and 150 con as quickly as possible. You can go to 50 dex, but I honestly think the 150 con perk is way more valuable, because taking 10% less criticals is huge. It's the only way you're ever going to survive on point. As you can see, my armor setup, I am using a medium dodge. Medium dodge, infinitely more superior. Now, you can do 10% more damage in light roll, sure, but you're going to die way, way, way faster. My chest piece alone has more defenses than the entire light set with medium chest combined. So it's very important for this. I get 3 dodges instead of 2, so I can have more iframes. More iframes, always better. You might move faster with a light roll, but I shouldn't be worrying about how far I'm moving away, because I should be fighting on point and around point. As you can see here, I'm not struggling to keep myself alive in medium roll. I'm taking way less damage in this setup, and I'm just able to survive longer. As you can see, I'm also using food and potions to try and keep myself alive, because you can't rely on single target healing in wars. It is just too laggy. But my teammates are doing their darndest to try and keep me alive. They're trying to keep their AoEs, and we are trying to fight the enemy. But as you can see, these initial pushes, without healing, we insta-wipe people so quickly. I'm doing up to 6k on triple hits on Flame Pillar. This is not a bug. There are multiple hitboxes. There is a hitbox in the middle of Flame Pillar, and there is hitboxes to the edge of the rings. So whenever you land Flame Pillar, you want to basically put the edge of the ring to their feet, with the middle of the Flame Pillar to their back. This will cause them to get hit in the back for a critical by the center of Flame Pillar, and it will cause them to get hit by the edge of the ring of the Flame Pillar to double hit. This will double your damage on Flame Pillars. With the Onyx, you will be doing a massive, massive burst damage. And for every person in your Ice Storm, as you know, 10% extra damage. You get the left clicks to even get more damage up. And then you can even use Burnout to try and chase people off point, or to try and finish them if they're not using potions. But at the end of the day, when it comes to wars itself and a war build like this, you mostly want to be fighting on point, getting into your own Ice Storms, using your Ice Walls to increase the rend damage by 10%, and then using your Entombed AoEs, because I've had critical procs of up to 6k on my Entombed AoEs when I get in there. And as you can see, when a healer has healing on point, I absolutely burst them. As I'm coming in behind them, as I'm coming in behind these back groups, as soon as I wipe the healer, I'm just dropping constant AoEs and picking off their backline. Situations like this is when you really want allies using gravities. You want your greataxe people to not be wasting their gravities on these single target people here and just left clicking them down and reaping them as quickly as possible. Because the only real problem with this is my auto attacks are slower than a greataxe, so it is a little bit harder for me to chase people down. If they just want to run and pot, there isn't too much that I can do about that. So we do need a little bit more of that with our allies and helping each other. For the next set of wars, what we're going to be doing is, rather than focusing on individual builds, because we've now all got the really good meta builds, we need to be focusing more on team tactics. Not for this video, but it is something I will suggest you. If you're in a war and your team is using Discord communications, I highly suggest you use in-game comms with your Discord muted, so you can talk to your 5-man group and organize your 5-man group. The reason for this is you want to be calling out to your team where your heals are going, you want to be staggering your gravities, and then you want to be following up those gravities with those big AoEs. So say you have 3 people that can use gravity. First person calls out he's using it. He hits or he misses. If he hits, great. 2 seconds to 3 seconds later, because it's only a 3-second last, you want your second gravity to be thrown. You then want your third one to be followed up with that. If however he misses, the other 2 can then organize a second gravity, because most likely they won't have the stamina to dodge out this one, or the movement ability to dodge out this one, because the only way to get out of gravity is a movement ability. And as long as you can follow up, you'll be able to do the damage to break it, even if they Entombed, because Entombed has pretty low health, even if it does last 10 seconds. If you've got 9 seconds of gravities up, and someone constantly doing Flame Pillar with the other 2, I don't care who you are, no one is surviving that. And if you catch them off point, then they're either going to have to choose to use all their AoE healing off point, which is good, because that means they then can't fight on point and they will be wiped by your team, or they just die off point. Both scenarios, you stop the rotation, you stop the push, and you've done absolutely fantastic. And that's the whole purpose of this build. This is the big damage dealer. He's not got much in the high IQ plays of engaging outside of ice walls to slow down rotations and stop people being able to use their speed pots. Besides that, you need someone else to make your plays. You are not the playmaker, you are the follow-up. So your playmakers are your great axes, and you do want a lot of them on your team. And that's all I can really say about this build. It is absolutely fantastic. I am going to be getting other perks, which I will then update the build, which is stuff like Empowered Fireball I do want. And there are a few other stuff because I need to update my jewelry. But I hope this has been helpful for you. As I said, build links will be below along with my Twitch. So if you want to ever come along and ask any questions, I spend absolutely hours whilst I'm doing my gathering skills just answering questions. If you want to know anything about leveling up, other builds, or even my build, my stats, and what I would suggest that you do, and even about the economy in your server, feel free to come and ask me. But there's another 5 minutes or so of this war, so I'm just going to turn on the in-game audio so you can hear just the last few moments of how our war fell apart. But I hope you enjoyed the build video, and I'll catch you all next time.
Griefing everyone by not coming towards you. You're really just making everyone else not have a good time.
Seeing through people. There's just a few.
Is I don't know. There's 6 minutes left. I don't know what we can do here. We can try and rotate behind, rotate out on the north gate and get back behind them on B. Or anything. I don't know.
I think we need to half split again. Just 1 through 5 go C and 6, 10 go B or something like that. It was our best bet.
Yeah, I guess we go
We
1,
need them
5.
to split up. Stick to these groups 1 through 5 C. Let's go B.
Yeah, we are pushing on the B. We have some fire cannons areas. Group up on the flag. They're wiping us.
Yeah.
We're pretty even on C at least. Just keep doing this.
Try and push them on B.
Yeah, keep them busy on the B.
Yep.
Wiping them on B as well.
I need more AoEs on their healers on their side of the point.
Okay, get on point, please. If you're on B.
Yeah, fight on point. Move around the point.
We're kind of wiping them on C slowly. Just keep fighting.
They rotate in, and we're just losing the point.
Well,
Like,
we'll see what the
like
squad
3
looks
times.
like.
Most of the time we cleaned all the turrets on the B. There was like nothing, and we kept doing also the fire on the point, but it was like not enough. They were standing in the fires, and
Yeah, of course, it helps.
even now the B doesn't have turrets anymore. All is destroyed.
no,
Yeah, we're definitely not getting
Yeah,
ping
like, the thing
ponged.
is that we should have won B 2 times. But for
Yeah, I
some
mean,
reason
there
we
was a
managed to
moment
stay
we
alive
had
and camp it.
There was a moment we had both B and C almost to the max, and then somehow we lost both. I think maybe we were too split at that
We just
moment.
need to survive longer, I think. Or fight.
Suppose. They defended really well. It's very tough. We were so close 3 times though. So close.
But the thing is, like, we should have had it 3 times.
Oh,
when I say, like,
When we see the scoreboard, we'll find out why. If they're out healing us, then that will show why. If they're out damaging us, that
survived
will
on
show why.
point way too long. For sure.
we like they're literally rotating over, running into us, and they managed to wipe it. It shouldn't happen. Like if we're standing on point, they're rotating in. It should not happen.
While they're
I don't
rotated in, the
understand.
guys that you actually killed also respawn on the point. It's just very.
So we'll see.
Tough
So we can look at